What's the most painful thing you've ever experienced? So my first answer is that it's called bile peritonitis, and I hope this is the first and last time you ever hear about it. A couple weeks after I gave birth to my first child, I started having these really intense stomach pains every so often. They'd last for a few hours and then disappear. I was busy with the baby, so honestly I didn't pay much attention to it. But one time it happened while I was over at my parents' house and my mother dragged me to the emergency room. They ran a few tests and told me I had gallstones and that I'd need to have surgery in the next couple weeks to get my gallbladder out. My dad had his gallbladder out a few years ago, so I wasn't really concerned about it. And I scheduled the surgery for the end of the month. But just a few days later, the pain came back, and it was much more severe than it had been the other times. It made labor look like a paper cut. I went back to the hospital, where they did another ultrasound and found out that my gallbladder was now rotting inside of me and needed to come out, like yesterday. So I was rushed into surgery and they took my gallbladder out. And I thought, that was weird. But at least now it's over. Number after healing really nicely for a few days, I was all of a sudden struck with pain like I cannot even describe. It felt like I was burning alive from the inside. I couldn't speak or move and could only breathe in these shallow little breaths because anything that moved my abdomen was excruciatingly painful. I really thought I was going to die. Back at the hospital, they told me it was probably just a few stones retained in the ducts by my liver, which made no sense to me because it was so much more painful than anything else that had happened before. I kept telling everyone that it was so much worse than it had been, but they kept acting like I was being really dramatic. Then my blood test results came back and showed that I was in liver failure, so they started to take me a little more seriously, but they still said it was probably just some leftover stones. 2 days of unbelievable pain later, they finally went back in to get the stones out and discovered that during the surgery to remove my gallbladder, the surgeon had nicked the common bile duct, which meant that bile was now spilling out of my organs and into my abdomen, literally frying my organs with chemical burns. It's a rare complication of gallbladder removal called bile peritonitis that's fatal about a quarter of the time. The bile had attacked the lining of my organs, and because they took their sweet time getting me into surgery because I was just a silly, overreacting little woman, I developed sepsis and almost died again a few days later. Somehow I made it through alive without any lasting effects. But the reason I said that's only my first answer is that I think the actual most painful thing was not being listened to through all of that. The doctors were constantly acting like I was overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing, when all I wanted was to get better so I could go home to be with my baby. I'll never forget how they just ignored when I was telling them something was wrong time after time.